Have you ever felt like you've lived another life before? Not a dream, but rather a nameless longing, a strange melody that tightens your chest, and you don't know why. A person you've just met, yet they feel uncannily familiar, as if your souls once held hands beneath another sky, or a city you've never set foot in. Yet your heart quietly whispers, "I've been here before. I was someone in this place." I used to think such things were just tricks of the imagination, until the day I stepped into my very first past life regression session and saw myself die. I won't tell you it was a pleasant experience. It's not something you laugh about lightly and recount like an amusing dream over breakfast. It was deep, it was quiet, it was suffocating, and it opened a door I had never dared to cross. A door leading back to a part of myself I never knew was still there. In this video, I'm going to share that journey with you. No sugarcoating, no pretending to be mystical, just a true story, with real emotions and questions that still echo within me to this day. Do we really only live once? If memories from a past life still exist, what are they trying to tell us about our life today? And if one day you too step onto this path, what will you find within yourself? Let's begin. A journey not meant for the hurried, but for those who dare to look deep within, to remember what your soul has never forgotten. I wasn't looking for some mystical experience, and I'm not the kind of person who believes in everything invisible just because someone else says it's true. But some things don't need convincing. They simply grow quietly inside you, like a gentle, patient call that you can't seem to ignore. I call it a longing, without shape. It began with the mornings I woke up feeling empty, even though everything around me looked exactly the same as the day before. A stable life, relationships that weren't falling apart, a job everyone said was the kind people dream of, and yet I still felt like I had lost something important, even if I couldn't name what it was. Then came the dreams. I stood in a strange field, cracked earth beneath me, a hazy gray sky above, the sound of hooves fading into the distance, and my hands holding something shattered. Over and over again. For months, I thought it was stress, until I stumbled upon an article about soul memory, and it felt like someone had flipped a switch inside my head. I began recording my dreams, noticing moments when I felt inexplicably emotional, like when I saw a painting of an ancient city or heard a piece of Asian folk music. Even though I was born in Texas, I started wondering, had I lived somewhere else before, with another name? Before I became this version of me, I didn't seek out a past life regression expert to find out who I was in a past life. I went because I needed to understand why. In the present, it always felt like some part of me was still waiting to be called by name. I wasn't expecting to witness anything extraordinary. I just wanted to know, if there really is something buried deep within the mind, could it help me live more gently, understand myself more clearly, and forgive myself more fully? That was the beginning of this journey, and I never could have imagined that once the first door opened, nothing would ever be the same again. In the next part, I'll recount that day in detail. The moment I stepped into the dimly lit room, closed my eyes, and suddenly dropped into a place that didn't belong to the present. A place I had never set foot in before, yet one that felt hauntingly familiar. I remember walking into that room for the first time. It was quiet, dim. There was a chair in the center, soft music playing somewhere low in the background. No incense, no crystals, no chanting, just stillness. And a woman with calm eyes who asked me gently, "Are you ready to remember?" I used to think past life regression would feel like hypnosis in the movies. You know, someone waving a pendant, counting backward, and suddenly you're in ancient Egypt fighting off invaders. It's not like that. Not at all. The truth is, it felt more like slowly drifting down a river, not being pushed, just guided. She spoke softly, helping me relax. First my breath, then my body, then my mind, and little by little, the noise faded. What replaced it wasn't a dream. It was a memory, one I didn't even know I had. She asked me to imagine walking through a hallway. Each door held a story, and one of them was mine. Not from this life, but from another time, another version of me. At first, I didn't see anything, just darkness, then flashes. The ground beneath me wasn't carpet, it was stone. There was a weight on my back, not emotional, physical, a leather strap, a burden, a role. And then came the emotion. I wasn't watching this person from afar, I was them. It's hard to explain what it's like to feel grief, for a life that isn't yours, to cry. Not because something is happening now, but because something already happened long ago, and yet it still lives inside you. Some people ask, how do you know it wasn't just your imagination? Maybe it was, but let me tell you something. I've imagined things my whole life, but nothing ever hit me like that memory did, like it had been waiting just below the surface. That session lasted about an hour, but when I opened my eyes, it felt like I had come back from somewhere much further away, somewhere older, somewhere I didn't know I missed until I left it behind again, and that was just the beginning. In the next part, I'll tell you exactly what I saw, the life I touched, and the moment I realized I had carried its pain with me into this one. I did not expect anything to happen. Honestly, I thought I might just sit there, half asleep, listening to my own breath, and walk out thinking, well, that was relaxing. But then something shifted. It was not dramatic. There was no sudden flash, no loud voices from the past, just a single image, a pair of shoes, worn, covered in dust, standing on cracked, sun-dried earth. And I knew, without anyone telling me, those shoes were mine, but not from this life. The next thing I felt was heat, dry wind brushing against my face, and a dull ache in my right shoulder, like I had been carrying something heavy for miles. I was not dreaming. I was remembering, not through words, but through sensations, the kind you do not forget, even if you do not know where they came from. I was a man, older than I am now, leaner, darker skin, a scar across my cheek, and a sadness in my chest that felt ancient. There was no name, but I recognized him as a version of me, a man who had lost someone, maybe a daughter, maybe a brother. I still do not know, but the grief was real, raw. It poured through me as if it had just happened, and I wept, silently, right there in that quiet little room, with my eyes still closed. This was not entertainment. It was not a story I made up. It was a wound, long buried, now uncovered. And yet, in that moment of pain, there was also peace, and knowing that I was not broken, just carrying something I had never been allowed to release until now. When I opened my eyes, I felt lighter, like I had finally set something down that was never mine to carry forever. In the next part, I will tell you what happened after I left that room, the strange way the world looked different, and how the past, somehow, began to ripple through the present. The session was over. I stood up, walked to the window, and everything outside looked the same, but I didn't feel the same. It's hard to describe, like the world had not changed, but something inside me had quietly rearranged itself. That night, I lay in bed, eyes wide open, trying to make sense of what I had seen, what I had felt. I kept asking myself, how could I grieve so deeply for a life that wasn't mine? A person I had never met, in a world I had never lived in, or had I? The next few days were strange. Little things began to stir emotions in me, in ways I could not explain. A father hugging his daughter at the park made my throat tighten. A dusty pair of old boots in a thrift store sent a chill down my spine. Even the smell of dry leaves in the sun felt like something I had known long ago. On a road I had once walked barefoot with someone I never got to say goodbye to. Somewhere deep down, I understood these were not just echoes. They were memories, living through emotion, not logic. And that is the thing. No one tells you about past life regression. It is not about names or places or dramatic stories. It is about the feelings that rise when your soul remembers something your mind has forgotten. I started to realize maybe some of the pain I had carried in this life was not entirely mine. Maybe some of the fear, some of the patterns, some of the heaviness came from a place older than my childhood. And if that was true, then maybe healing did not start by fixing what is wrong now, but by understanding what was never finished back then. That thought stayed with me, and it led me to a question that would become the center of everything I was about to experience. How much of who I am was shaped by a story I never knew I lived? In the next part, I will share what it felt like to wake up day after day with those emotions still echoing, and how they began to quietly but profoundly shift the way I saw myself and the life I was living now. They say some moments change you instantly, but the truth is, real change often arrives quietly, not like thunder, but like a slow, steady breath after holding it in for too long. The morning after my first regression, I woke up feeling still, not calm, not sad, just still, as if something inside me had stopped struggling. And in that silence, I started noticing things I had always overlooked. I paid more attention to the way sunlight moved across my floor, to the silence between songs, to the way people looked away when their hearts were full, but their mouths stayed closed. I began to sense stories inside strangers. Pain they did not speak, grief they did not know how to name, because I had seen my own, and it had changed how I saw others. For days, memories from the session would float back at random times, while brushing my teeth, while standing in line at the store, while hearing the hum of an old air conditioner. I did not try to force meaning onto them. I just let them be, like watching waves roll in, each one bringing something up from the deep, then gently pulling it away. At one point, I found myself crying while folding laundry, not out of sadness, but because for the first time in a long time, I felt whole, not perfect, not healed, just honest. With myself, some things in my life began to make more sense. My constant fear of abandonment, my resistance to authority, even the way I often felt the need to protect people, as if I had once failed to protect someone who mattered. I was not imagining these connections. I was remembering them in the only language the soul knows. Emotion. I didn't tell many people, not because I was afraid of being judged, but because I knew this was something sacred, meant to be lived before it was explained. In the next part, I will talk about the doubts, the questions, and the search for truth, because when you experience something this deep, the mind will always ask, was it real? And that question is where the next chapter begins. I knew the question would come. Was it real? Or was it just a story my mind made up to feel something, to explain something, to escape something? And I get it. Skepticism is human. I was a skeptic too. But here is the thing. Imagination can be powerful, but it rarely changes your life unless it touches something already buried deep inside. What I experienced in that session did not feel like fantasy. It felt like recognition, like remembering the lyrics to a song you have never heard before, but somehow you already know every word. Still, my mind needed something more. So I searched. I looked up the landscapes I had seen, the kind of clothing I wore, the name of the river that echoed in my head, even though I had never read about it before. And the strange part is, some of it lined up. A village once destroyed by war, on land that matched exactly what I saw. right down to the rocky path behind the well, a cultural practice involving stones placed over the heart of the dead, something I had never heard of, but had witnessed in vivid detail during my session. Coincidence? Maybe, but the more I searched, the more I realized I was not the only one. There were others, stories of children recalling names of distant towns, languages they were never taught, traumas they had never lived through, but bore the scars for. I came across a case of a boy in India who remembered his past family, their names, their village, and even how he died. Everything he said was confirmed by the living family of the man he claimed to have been. And then there was the American pilot story, a child recalling being shot down in World War II. Details later verified. Plain name, crew members, exact location. I am not here to convince anyone, but I know what I felt, and I know how it changed me. Sometimes, the mind demands proof, but the soul only needs recognition. And maybe that is enough, because not everything real can be measured or explained. Some things are only understood when you feel them. In the next part, I will share the unexpected lessons I carried back with me. Lessons that did not just explain the past, but transformed how I live now, not by changing who I am, but by reminding me who I have always been. After the memories faded, after the emotions softened, what stayed were the questions, quiet ones, but persistent. Why did I see that life? Why now? And what was I meant to understand from it? I kept asking myself, if the past cannot be changed, what is the point of remembering it? But the answer did not come in words. It came slowly, in the way I began to respond to life, in how I started treating the people around me and myself. There was a moment, about 2 weeks after the regression, when someone I loved said something that would have hurt me deeply before. But this time, I paused, I breathed, and I forgave them without needing them to apologize. That was new. Not because I had become passive, but because I realized sometimes we carry pain that does not belong to this moment, and we hand it to others without knowing. I had seen that in myself. In that other life, I held on to grief until it turned into bitterness, and that bitterness outlived me. It shaped how I walked through this life without my awareness. Remembering that story, that version of me, did not just give me empathy, it gave me choice. The choice to end the cycle, the choice to live differently, to let go with intention, not just reaction. Since then, my life has not become perfect. I still lose my temper, still fall into doubt, but now there is space, a breath between emotion and reaction, a gap where I can choose again. That, for me, was the gift of regression, not to escape the present, but to return to it, more whole. If you ask me what I carried back from that past life, I would say this: forgiveness, not just of others, but of who I used to be, in every form, in every time. The lesson was not loud, it was gentle, subtle, but powerful. Sometimes, healing does not shout, it simply stops the hurt from being passed on. In the next part, I will talk about the common mistakes I made on this journey, things I wish someone had told me before I went in, things that could save you time, energy, and confusion, especially if you are thinking about trying regression for yourself. Looking back now, there are a few things I wish someone had told me, not to scare me, but to prepare me for what this experience truly is. Regression is not a magic trick. It is not a shortcut to enlightenment, and it is not always gentle, but it can be beautiful if you meet it with the right mindset. The first mistake I made was expecting something dramatic. I thought I would see clear visions, hear names, witness scenes, like a movie. But the truth is, memory does not always return in full color. Sometimes it comes as a feeling, a shadow, a single word that echoes without reason. And if you chase the spectacle, you might miss the message. The second mistake was trying too hard. I remember lying there in the quiet and thinking, why am I not seeing anything yet? Am I doing it wrong? That pressure, that self-doubt, it pulled me away from the experience. Regression is not about control. It is about surrender. And that was hard for someone like me, someone who always wanted to understand everything. The third mistake was choosing someone I did not fully resonate with the first time. The first practitioner I spoke to sounded professional, but I felt no connection, no trust, no ease. And that matters more than most people realize, because regression is not just about technique. It is about feeling safe enough to let go. I eventually found someone who felt grounded, present, and genuinely kind, and that changed everything. If I could give you one piece of advice, it would be this: do not go into regression looking for answers. Go in looking to listen. That is when the real answers begin to rise, not from outside, but from the quiet within. And finally, be kind to yourself after the session. You might feel disoriented, emotional, even heavy. That is not a sign something went wrong. It is often a sign something deep is trying to surface and settle. Give it space. Give it time. In the last part, I will bring this journey full circle. I will share what this experience has meant for my life today and why, even now, I believe the greatest reason to explore your past is to return more fully to your present. When I started this journey, I was simply looking for clarity, maybe some kind of healing. But what I found was something deeper. I found a mirror held up by time, showing me parts of myself I never knew I had lost. Remembering a past life did not change everything overnight, but it shifted something at the core. It made me look at my life now with softer eyes, at the people I love, at the mistakes I have made, at the moments I used to wish away. I realized that maybe we do not come here just to chase goals or prove our worth or build perfect stories. Maybe we come here to remember how to feel, how to love, how to let go, and begin again. Regression helped me do that, not by giving me all the answers, but by giving me better questions. Who am I beneath the roles I play? What has my soul carried across time? And what is mine to finally release so I can live lighter now? I live slower. I listen more. I forgive without needing the other person to understand why. Not because I am wiser, but because I know what it feels like to carry pain too long. I used to think purpose was something you had to go out and find, but sometimes purpose is what you uncover when you finally stop running and sit quietly with everything you have been avoiding. That is what this journey gave me. Not a new identity, but a deeper sense of presence. Not a different life, but a more honest way of living the one I already have. Outro. Maybe you do not need to believe in past lives to benefit from remembering where your soul has been. Maybe you just need to be open to the idea that you are more than this moment, that you have always been more. And if you ever feel a quiet pull towards something unknown or a strange memory that makes no sense, pay attention, because sometimes the most important parts of us are the ones we forgot to remember. If this story moved something in you, if it sparked curiosity or softened something heavy, I invite you to share your thoughts below. Have you ever felt like you had lived before? Have you ever dreamed of a life that felt more real than this one? Let's talk about it. Let's explore it together. And if you would like to continue walking this path, subscribe and stay close, because this is just one story in a soul's journey that is still unfolding, and yours is waiting to be remembered.